How's it going, people? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be talking about 10 affordable BMWs that you can buy for under around £30,000, starting at around £10,000, that are pretty much just dream cars. I did this video previously on Porsches and I wanted to do it on BMWs as well, so here we are. If there are any other manufacturers you'd like to do this on, let me know in the comments down below. But yes, all 10 of these cars obviously come from BMW, and all 10 of them I think are particularly special, either because they are classics or because they are just rapid, or because we as car lovers absolutely adore them. But don't forget that as BMWs, they maybe don't have the best reliability history, let's say, and don't forget that I'm in the UK, so prices in other countries may differ. Don't forget, if you enjoyed the video, to hit the like button and subscribe as well if you're new. Say hi to my cat Simba, who was crying outside the door, hence I had to bring him in. And apologies for the shirt, I literally just finished work and I haven't had much time today. But without further ado, let's get into the video. There's a good mix of cars in this video, as I said, and we're kicking it off with the oldest car on this list, the BMW 2002, which is a 2-litre inline-4 engine making 100 brake horsepower and getting to 60 in 12 seconds. Obviously not a quick car, but already well beyond icon status in my opinion. Back in 1963, BMW wanted to get into making some smaller cars, so they started to build a short wheelbase coupe version of their main saloon. The idea was to make a car that was sportier and reinvigorate the brand's identity as a luxury sports car manufacturer. Along came the O2 class car, which initially came with a 1.6-litre engine, then a 1.8-litre one before it got the 2-litre block and became the 2002 in 1968. It then had 3 generations, which went on until 1976 when they ended production. But this car is, in my opinion, pretty fundamental to defining the types of cars BMW make today, like the M2 and M4 in particular, and for that reason it's a certified classic. These start at around £20,000 in useful condition, but I have seen cheaper projects available. It depends how handy you are. It's a classic car, so do be ready to give this car some love and attention to keep it on the roads. I haven't got time to go all the potential issues, but I would say make sure you check the Classic World Buyer's Guide on these, and once you have one, reuse the right fluids to give it a longer life. It's another classic next on this list, the BMW 840 Ci, which is a 4.4-litre V8 engine making 286 brake horsepower, which gives it a 0 to 60 time of 6.7 seconds. The E31 was BMW's flagship Super GT car in the 1990s, and though it's difficult to get a hold of an 850i with the V12 engine, you can get into an 840 Ci, which is still unreal. BMW's goal was to create, in their words, its challenge to the world's finest sports coupes, with a design oozing avant-garde elegance, arresting performance attributes, an exceptional wealth of innovations, and a sprinkling of exclusive luxury, which is marketing speak for pretty, fast, and luxurious Grand Tourer. I personally love the look of these, with a design that harks back to the M1 and the pop-up headlights, which, if you watch the channel, you know I'm a fan of. In reality, this car was a bit of a flop. Despite initial sales hype, it only ended up selling just over 30,000 in total due to being heavy, slow, and too boring for many owners. But rose-tinted lenses have meant that this car has become a proper classic today and a lovely car to own. These are listed for a minimum of around 10 grand, double what they were in 2017, and you'll get stunning examples with 40,000 miles on the clock at around the 20 to 30k mark. Insane considering you could get an 850i for under £2,000 back in 2005. Watch for smoke on startup or overrun, which could be any number of issues, and timing chain tension as need replacing at 100,000 miles. Suspension will likely be pretty old too, so worth a good look around the components. There are, of course, a few M3s on this list, and we're going to start with the E36, which has a 3.2-litre inline-6 engine in its more recent spec, which puts out 316 brake horsepower and will get to 60 in 5.4 seconds. This is the second generation M3 following the E30, which is another absolute stunner. It came as a coupe, convertible, and saloon, and personally I think it looks best as either the coupe or convertible. Originally the car had a 3-litre block, but this was increased to the 3.2 for the 1996 model year, which BMW proudly announced came as a result of their work with the McLaren F1 team. The car had a different ethos to the E30. The first gen was supposed to be a light race car for the road, while the second gen was supposed to be a slightly more luxurious sports car, which wasn't to everyone's taste initially. It seems like a lot of people didn't get the memo on this though, as the E36 remains a popular track toy. £10,000 the minimum that you'll find these listed for, and you get a pretty unreal model for around the 25k mark. Rust is known on these around the front wings, boot floor, rear suspension and jacking points, and Vanos is of course a problem on these. Exhausts are known to crack and water pump bearings fail too. The one to really look out for on this is brake pipe corrosion, according to owners I could find on forums. Sharing its engine with the E36 M3 is the iconic Z3M, but it will get to 60 in 5.1 seconds instead and puts out around 325 brake horsepower. It has the same basic underpinnings as the E36 M3 funnily enough, but it's aimed at a completely different market, as an upmarket competitor to cars like the Mark 1 MX-5 and a match to the Porsche Boxster when it dropped in 1995. The design was inspired by the classic 507 Roadster, and in M-Spec it benefits from a slightly more aggressive body kit all around. The Roadster came first, and then a bunch of BMW engineers did some designing outside of the office to come up with the Coupe example, which came out in 1997. On release, a lot of people didn't like the design, and it was named the bread van or clown shoe, but today it's far more sought after. This reflects in prices, as you'll get the Roadster starting at around £18,000, but you can find the odd coupe at under £30,000 with high miles. Despite the mileage, I would probably still get the coupe. Vanos also causes a problem on these, as do the bearing shells, which are known to disintegrate. There's also a known issue with the weak gear lever. It's another M3 in 6th, but this time it's the E46, which has, surprise surprise, a 3.2 litre inline 6 engine making 338 brake horsepower, and it's got a 0 to 60 time of 5 seconds. Like the E36, it deviated from the E30's more aggressive stylings and had a much more subtle set of changes over the standard car. It still benefits from a slightly more punchy body kit and alloys, but not the flair that the E30 has. It gained the new S54 engine, and though the car was heavier overall, it was of course quicker than the E36 and came with both a 6-speed manual and 6-speed SMG automatic. One area of focus for BMW was the interior. After the odd comment about the E36 not being a nice enough place to be, the E46 gained some nicer materials inside with a more interesting selection of colours. Weirdly, BMW also got rid of the saloon for this generation, despite the fact that now M3s have dropped coupes and convertibles instead. £10,000 the minimum that you'll find these listed for, and you'll get a very low mileage example starting at around 20k, and you might even get a CS for under 30k. The rear axle carrier panel is a key weak point, and the engine requires a lot of preventative maintenance to keep it running nicely. Head gasket failure isn't an unknown issue, and the Vanos and Conrod bearings are both known to cause trouble. Also recommend a manual, as the SMG box has been known to lose 4th gear and change slower over time. So I hope you're enjoying this video. If you are, make sure you hit the like button, I would really appreciate it, and subscribe as well if you're new. As I said, 1,000 likes to do the same video for a different manufacturer. Let me know in the comments who you'd like that to be. We are super close to 100k, and I would massively appreciate it if you guys that haven't subscribed yet hit that button, so please do. It's the final car with a 3.2 litre inline 6 engine now, the Z4M, which matches the E46 at 338 brake horsepower, but will get to 60 in just 4.8 seconds. We've spoken about the Z3M, and the Z4M is the car that replaced it, again coming as either a Roadster or Coupe. And the same story applies. Roadsters are the less desirable versions than Coupes in terms of how the market has reacted to them. It's a beautiful shape in coupe spec with that lovely fastback design, and if the Z3M is anything to go by, these will one day become classics too, and I actually think they're a bit underrated in the car world. Not only that though, I've actually heard that they're pretty fun to drive when compared with the non-M examples. Roadsters start at around £12,000, and you'll get a stunning coupe with around 50,000 miles on the clock for 25 to 30 grand. Engine oil and filters need to be changed every 7,500 miles, and the roof drain holes are known to get blocked up, leading to rust issues. Outside of that, the problems with the Z4M are pretty much a copy-paste job with the E46, given they share the same engine and many components. My personal favourite M3 is the E90 series, specifically the E92 Coupe and E93 Convertible, which are very good looking aesthetically, but more importantly host a 4-litre V8 engine which makes 414 brake horsepower and will get to 60 in 4.5 seconds. It came 7 years after the release of the E46, but this time the car really was a very different beast. That engine was brand new for the E90, which is often a bad thing with BMWs to be honest, as they are much better at sticking to the inline 6s that they know. That's not to take away from the fact that when it is working, it's a stunning engine block that sounds incredible. The engine is so big in fact that the bonnet needed to be fitted with a power bulge to fit it in, and the front bumper got 3 new vents to take in enough air to keep it cool. In E92 spec, you also get a carbon fiber roof to save weight, similar to the E46 CSL. These start at around £15,000 and you get a top spec example at 30k. I'd probably be looking at around the 20k mark personally. I mentioned reliability, and there are known problems with the idle control valve, ignition, oil consumption, throttle body actuators, rod bearings, and a bunch of other issues which definitely let this car down. It's a fan favourite taking third on this list, the E60 M5, which has an F1 inspired 5-litre V10 engine making 499 brake horsepower, which gets the car to 60 in 4.5 seconds. BMW were at war with Mercedes to try and make the most savage saloons out there, so decided to build the world's first production V10 saloon ever. BMW took their involvement with the Sauber F1 team and threw that knowledge into this V10, then threw it into the M5 frame. If you option the M drivers pack from factory, the electronic limiter was removed, meaning it will do 190 miles per hour, though some owners attest to getting it to over 200 miles per hour. I'm personally a huge fan of the M5 Touring. It's a shame that E90 M3 didn't get an E91 Touring version, but the E61 M5 Touring makes up for it. A V10 estate car? Yes, please. £12,000 the lowest that I could find these listed for, and they used to go for under 10k. At 30k I'd look at getting a Touring because they're so rare. But if you know about these cars, you know they're not even slightly reliable. The main two problems are premature rod bearing wear and the Vanos system, and if I had to add a third, it would be the SMG gearbox with the red cog of death. Taking second on this list is the BMW M2, the newest car on this list, with its 3-litre turbocharged inline 6, which makes 364 brake horsepower and will manage 0 to 60 in 4.2 seconds. Originally we had the 1 Series, 3 Series, 5 Series, 6 Series and 7 Series in active duty for BMW, but they decided to split the coupes and or convertibles out of the 1 and 3 Series. The M2 comes as a result of that, being the car split out from the 1 Series. Weirdly, it was unveiled in the game Need for Speed No Limits back in 2015, and for a bit of extra marketing, it was the safety car for the 2016 MotoGP season. It comes as either a manual or DCT auto, and it really reminds me of a baby M4 despite being more expensive second hand. It's a lovely looking car and it sounds good too. Currently I reckon it would make a great daily as well with a nice interior. As the most expensive car on this list, it starts at around £29,000, and for 30 grand you get a 2017 model with around 50,000 miles on the clock. So far reliability isn't well documented on these as they're so new, but owners have mentioned a few issues here and there, nothing that I would call common. Coil packs appear to have gone in a few cases, and there have been a few leaks from the oil filter housing gaskets and valve cover gaskets. Taking the top spot on this list is a car that I recently reviewed, the BMW M4, which is a 3-litre twin turbocharged inline 6, making 424 brake horsepower and managing 0 to 60 in 4 seconds. These sometimes seem to split opinions online, but having driven one for a few weeks, it really is a lovely car. It handles well enough and apparently is even better in comp spec, but for any kind of road use it'll do nicely. It feels a bit heavy, but more in a brutish way than in an annoying way. It's also wide and has major road presence, kinda like driving a boat around, but particularly in convertible spec. The interior is a nice place to be, not too shouty but does the job, and the gearbox changes on the DCT are nice enough that even a manual fan like myself will consider getting that DCT instead. It's just a nice premium BMW, and it's the first car I've ever driven with my girlfriend that she actually thought was cool, so for that reason I'd definitely get one myself. £24,000 minimum that I could find these listed for, and for 30 grand you'll get a 2015 model with around 44,000 miles on the clock. The one I reviewed sold back to BMW for 30 grand as well. Like the M2, these haven't been around long enough to get a full picture on reliability, but owners have generally put quite a few miles on them with limited problems. Some have mentioned issues with jerky DCT changes, but this usually signals the need for a change of transmission oil. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, again, hit that like button, I'd really appreciate it, and subscribe as well if you're new. Massive thanks again to the patrons for their support, and to you guys as well for watching. I'll see you in the next one.
Listen.